Hello and welcome back to another Ian Kane podcast. I'm Ian Kane, your host, and welcome to Passion Week, also known as Holy Week. Today, Palm Sunday marks the beginning of five consecutive days where we in the Catholic Church really deepen in our faith and meditate on Christ's suffering, death, and eventually his resurrection. So in this video, we're going to be talking about what is Holy Week, what happens on each of the days in Holy Week, and how we can really meditate for the great time of Easter in these next few days. Let's get right into it. So first, what is really Holy Week? So Holy Week doesn't actually have a specific time, but it starts. I think it's after the fifth week. Yes, it's after the fifth week in Lent. So, after 5 weeks of Lent and meditating just on his death and his suffering, we finally move into the time period where we actually get to experience the masses with his that happened and that are commemorated about his death and suffering. So it can vary in dates, whether depending on what date the Lent actually begins. So it can really vary. And today's the 28th. Yes, the 28th today. So today's the 28th. Next year could start on the 29th or the 30th. It could really vary. It just has to be on a Sunday, so it'll probably start on the 29th. Yeah, it'll start on the 29th next year, I think. So that's kind of what Holy Week is. It's really when we focus on Jesus' death. And when we're in all of Lent, we do focus on that. But this week, we really do focus on everything that he did before his death. The week before, the days that occurred before his death and what happened in them. So without further ado, let's discuss what happened on each of the days. So starting on Saturday evening, so yesterday in our time when I'm posting this, we can experience the first Mass of the Palm Sunday. So usually their evening masses 4:30, 5 o'clock, and you can then really start your journey on Holy Week by getting your the palms that they used, not that they used, but symbolizes what happened when Jesus came on a donkey into Jerusalem in his last few days on earth, or in the world. That's what those palms symbolize honor and really help us meditate on his entry into Jerusalem, which is the beginning of Holy Week. So that's going into Saturday night, going into Sunday, which Sunday is actually Palm Sunday. Saturday night is still Palm Sunday. It's considered, even outside of Palm Sunday, Saturday evening it's considered Sunday because the sun has gone down, and the next day is Sunday. That's only for Sunday and Saturday, though. So that's right there, the Palm Sunday. So we are commemorating Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on a donkey, and his final few days are spent in Jerusalem. And these final few days are the most powerful days. And he says a lot of the important stuff that we hear during the Mass and that we hear people preaching today, which we'll break down in the following. So we have all categorize these days. We have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. These are the 3 days of the whole week that nothing really happens that we actually know of. So the whole week is big, but no actual key events or stuff that'll affect Jesus actually happen. Yes, there's multiple things like the weeping over Jerusalem, which is, I think that's either on Thursday, which we'll get in a little bit, or that's on Wednesday or on the days leading up, where Jesus goes up to the Mount of Olives, I think, or somewhere around Jerusalem, and weeps over Jerusalem, and really asks God or his Father, why, right? Why Jerusalem? If you knew what real peace meant, right? And you can find that in the Gospels. I think John, I think they're in all the Gospels though, that passage, and those days. He does a lot of his final preaching. I know a lot of his final preaching ones are a lot about love. You'll notice about in those last few Gospels, or little fishy splash. I'm right by a lake, so I hear a fish splash over there on the camera. Anyways, but you'll hear a lot of about what Jesus says about loving one another and really loving others as He has loved us on this journey. So that He kind of really takes into account that. So those are the 3 days that we don't really have anything going on, but they really help us to prepare for what's going to happen in these next few days. So then we come to Holy Thursday. Holy Thursday. This is one of the, I think it's the second probably most influential moment in Holy Week, where we really get to experience what it means to be Catholic. So Holy Week, a lot of things happen on Holy Week. First thing was, the most important thing is that Jesus had His Last Supper. So we all know that the Last Supper was when Jesus, or most of us know, the Last Supper was Jesus, it was His Last Supper. This is the last meal with the disciples together. And this is where He instituted the Eucharist, and He instituted He didn't institute the priesthood then and there, but the Catholic Church commemorates the priesthood in that Mass too. So it's the commemoration of the Eucharist and then the priesthood. So two very important things. The Eucharist obviously being the most important, because this is where He said, "This is my body. This is my blood. Take it, drink of it, eat of it, and you will have eternal life." You'll see again in the Gospel of John, that He really talks about this being His true flesh and His true food, that whoever eats this and drinks this will never thirst but have eternal life, right? They will live with Him, and they will never hunger and never thirst. So that's very important to realize, that the institution of the body and blood of Christ. The priesthood isn't really mentioned there, but it is commemorated. So all the priests in the diocese either go to the cathedral, or they just do it at their own assigned church, where the vows of being a priest are taken again, and they basically renew their covenant with God as being a priest. That's Holy Thursday for you. It's probably the least sad day in the church during Holy Week. Well, other than those 3 days that we just talked about, but during the actual main days, it's probably the least holy one. Or not least holy. They're all holy. It's called Holy Week. Not least holy, sorry, but least sad. But it is sad that, Last Supper helps us to really engage our minds in what is about to happen. But we'll talk about that at the very end when we get through all the days, how we can really meditate on this week. So, now we go to Good Friday. Good Friday. We should all know what happens on Good Friday. Obviously, Jesus dies. So actually, I'll say this. So going into Thursday night, Jesus, after the Last Supper, Jesus goes away with, I think, Peter, James, and John. And they all go pray. They go pray in the Garden of Gethsemane. And this is probably my most powerful moment that I've ever heard in the Bible. But it's where Jesus kneels down on a rock, kind of like the one I'm recording on. It's a pretty big rock. And He tells His apostles to be left alone. So there's only 3 of them. They go away. They go pray by themselves. But He's praying by Himself, and He's, "Father, let this cup pass from me if you will." Right? And He says at the end of the day, basically, and He didn't say at the end of the day, but He said, in conclusion, He said, "Let your will be done, not my will. Not me, but yours." And that's powerful, because Jesus, as much as we see Jesus as God, and He is God, right? He's also had human emotions when He was on earth. He was also a human like us, so He experienced those human emotions. And that's where He cried. He cried, and the blood was falling from His face, because He was in so much stress. He was so anxious. He was so he wanted this. He kept on saying, he actually prayed 3 times that this cup be passed from Him, that He actually didn't do it. So He goes back to check on the apostles. They're all sleeping. And He says, "Stay awake. You don't know when the hour is going to come when the Son of Man is going to be gone." So He goes back and prays one more time, and then He comes back to the apostles. They're sleeping again. He tells them to wake back up, and He goes back, and then they're praying. He comes back one last time, tells them to wake up, and then he prays one last time, and then here comes Judas, that little liar, and saying, he betrays the Son of God with a kiss, and um, that's the last we ever hear of Judas. Judas is gone, and he goes to hang himself. So that's very, very. That's basically it. That's when Jesus's mission. And then from now on out, Jesus doesn't say a lot of words. Jesus doesn't say. He usually says a lot in the Gospels, but he doesn't say a lot in these next few times. So yes, so then Jesus gets taken, and now we're in the Good Friday. So Good Friday is the time where Jesus gets beaten, he gets spat on, he carries his cross, and he gets crucified. So these are all major events that happen, and these are all based off the Stations of the Cross. That's based off of, but the Stations of the Cross were based off of this. So it's very heavy. So there's no Eucharist. You can't receive Mass, but you can do Stations of the Cross, and you can venerate the cross. And this is where everybody meditates. Everybody meditates on this day about what Jesus did for us, and that how he came down from heaven onto earth and humbled himself so much to be death on a cross. He could have said he had legions of angels waiting for him to be released, waiting for God to say, the Father to say, go get him, go save my son. But he didn't want that. He wanted to go through with it because he knew what was going to happen after this was going to be great for all of us. He felt every single piece of pain, every beat with the, every whip with the whip, every hit by the whip, every piece of spit that fell on him, every nail that was driven into him, every shout and every mockery that was shouted at him. He felt that, and yet he actually composed himself so good that he didn't even respond. He was ignoring them. He wasn't falling in the temptation of sinning, but Jesus just continued his mission, and he knew that this had to be done, and that this was the Father's will. So yes, that's the biggest meditation day. Well, actually, now we go into Holy Saturday. So after Jesus is dead, and he's taken down from the cross, and he is put in the tomb, and the stone is rolled over, and the 2 Roman soldiers are there. They're standing there for 3 days, right? Because they don't want anybody to steal the body. So then all the apostles say, "Oh, look, he's gone," right? He was resurrection. So that's a really important thing to note, that there's no way he could have been stolen, because there was like 4 Roman guards just there. So there was no way he got stolen. So we go over to the was it Holy Saturday? Yes, I think it is. I always get it mixed up. Anyways, we go into Saturday. It is the quietest time of the church. There's no Mass except in the evening. We'll get to that. And there's no silence. So this is the most solemn day other than Good Friday in the church. No one's joyful. This is all sad and gloomy because Jesus hasn't been resurrected yet. Nobody knows about this. So we're waiting for the 3rd day, and when they had to go prepare his body for the spices. So the thing of the apostles, they were all up in the room. They're just like, what do we do now? And they're all relying on Peter, because Jesus literally said, "You are Peter, and on my you're the rock which I will build my church on." And this guy, his best friend just died, and he has to deal with it, and it's really when you really think of what they must have been doing, it's sad. They didn't know what to do. So then we go into we go into the evening of Good Saturday. Well, no, Holy Saturday. Is it holy? Is it holy? We'll just say Saturday. So in the evening, we celebrate the Easter Vigil. So the Mass starts out all dark. Everything is still gloom, because we're still not at Easter. But then as the Mass progresses, all the lights turn on, and we sing the first Gloria of the Easter season, and the first Gloria of the new after Easter. And we sing this Gloria for like a ton of time until Pentecost, and then go back to ordinary time. But this is when we find out that Jesus was resurrected, and all the happiness, all the sadness, all the pain that he went through, and all the things that we've gone through during Lent, and all the things that we struggled with, and everything that we've given up, has been resurrected with Christ. It has been laid down on the cross, and we should still be laying down on the cross every day. And that goes with the Sunday Masses too. Everybody is happy because Jesus is resurrected. They rolled with his tomb, the stone to get the spices there because it was on the Sabbath. They couldn't. It was some special day in the Jewish tradition. They couldn't do anything with the body, so they notice that he's gone, and all that's left is the shroud that he was wrapped in, and he's gone. He's resurrected, and from that time for 40 days, again we're in the Easter season celebrating Easter, and then we have Pentecost, which is a whole other episode because that's really, really special, and we'll talk about what happened before Pentecost. What did Jesus actually do before Pentecost? Because that's actually a whole other talk. But anyways, during this week of holiness, we gotta really meditate on every day that Jesus came to save us and for everybody. Jesus came to save us, and that everything that he did during this week was to save us. Everything that he did, everything all from the entry into Jerusalem to the carrying of the cross to his death was for us. And even after this Lenten season's over, the journey is never over. The fish, they're jumping around today. Just because our Lenten goals are officially over doesn't mean that we should completely give them up, right? We completely stop doing them, because of course these things are good for us to really meditate on the sacrifice of Christ, and we should continue doing them if they keep us close to Christ. So that's kind of a wrap. Just kind of meditate on this week his death, resurrection, and his passion, what he went through, and to really ask for Christ's forgiveness during this time and for his presence with us all. So, with that, oh my gosh, I gotta go to my stand. With that, I will see you guys in the next one. God bless.